The first time I saw the silver SUV in my garage, I thought I had lost my mind. My garage door was still locked, my tools in place, the concrete floor spotless except for this monster of a vehicle squatting in the center like it owned the place. At first, I thought maybe my cousin had borrowed space to store a friend's car. But then I noticed the smug decal on the back window. Sterling Heights HOA board member. That's when my gut went cold. Only one person in this neighborhood flaunted that title like royalty, Karen Whitfield. She was the type of woman who walked around with a clipboard as if it were a sword, striking down anyone who dared hang laundry outside or plant a sunflower 2 inches too tall. And now, apparently, she had decided my garage was her personal parking spot. I marched straight to her house, 3 doors down, rehearsing my words. She answered before I could knock twice, wearing that oversized leopard print robe and the smirk I'd come to hate. "Oh, you," she said, looking me up and down. "What's the emergency this time?" I kept my voice level. "Your SUV is in my garage. Move it. Now." She tilted her head like a cat studying a trapped mouse. "It's temporary. The HOA has authorized use of unoccupied spaces for community purposes. You haven't used your garage in months." My hands tightened into fists. "That's not a community purpose. That's trespassing." She laughed, actually laughed before shutting the door in my face. For the next 2 weeks, the SUV didn't budge. I called the police, but when the responding officer saw her HOA badge, his tone softened. "It's a civil matter," he muttered, almost apologetically. Karen, of course, watched from her porch, sipping coffee like she was untouchable. But I knew something she didn't. My garage was wired with cameras, every angle recorded, and I had her on video breaking in. That became my first card to play. I printed still frames Karen with a crowbar, Karen sliding the SUV in like she was docking a yacht, and sent them to the county code enforcement office. But here's the twist. Before they could act, I got an unexpected call from a man named Frank Reynolds. He ran a local junkyard and had recently towed a vehicle at Karen's request from another neighbor's driveway without the owner's consent. "She owes me $3,000 for unpaid storage fees," Frank said. "If you've got her on something, I'll back you up." My mind lit up like a fuse. Frank had the equipment I needed and the grudge to match. By week 4, Karen had pushed it too far. She slapped a fake HOA violation notice on my door, claiming my garage was improperly utilized and threatening a $1,000 fine. That was the last straw. I filed a formal trespass affidavit with the sheriff's office, attaching every shred of video evidence. When the deputy called me back, his tone was very different from the first officer's. "We'll sign off on removal," he said. "Do whatever you need to clear your property legally." That was all the green light I needed. At dawn the next day, Frank's flatbed rolled up. I'd unlocked the garage, standing there with my arms crossed as the metal clamps bit into the SUV's wheels. Karen must have heard the hydraulic lift because she came running down the street in a pink tracksuit, screaming like we were stealing her firstborn. "That's my car," she shrieked. "You can't touch it." I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. "Actually, it's been trespassing on my property for 32 days. And according to this signed order, I waived the deputy's authorization in the air. I absolutely can." Frank's driver didn't even glance at her as the SUV tilted, groaned, and settled onto the truck bed. But I wasn't done. Instead of having it towed to her driveway, I had already arranged its final destination, Reynolds Auto Salvage. There, under the morning sun, Frank himself operated the claw, lifting the SUV high before slamming it into the compactor. Karen arrived just in time to watch her prized vehicle flatten into a metallic pancake, her screams drowned by the roar of steel crushing steel. A small crowd of neighbors gathered, some filming, others hiding smiles. One man muttered, "Finally, someone put her in her place." What Karen didn't expect was the final blow. Later that week, she tried to bill me for destruction of HOA property, but the sheriff's office responded first, charging her with forced entry, illegal use of private property, and harassment. As the charges piled up, so did the stories from other residents. Turns out I wasn't the only one she had targeted. By the time her court date rolled around, Karen wasn't the queen bee anymore. She was just another defendant in a cheap suit, avoiding eye contact while the judge read the list of complaints. Karen's trial was the kind of small-town spectacle people whispered about for months. The courthouse benches were packed neighbors who had endured years of her petty fines, overreach, and fabricated bylaws sat shoulder to shoulder, leaning forward like they didn't want to miss a single grimace. I took my seat in the second row, my phone in my pocket, still loaded with the footage of her breaking into my garage. She walked in with her lawyer, chin up, but the air around her felt different. No smug waves, no self-satisfied glances, just the rigid posture of someone who had been cornered. The prosecutor wasted no time, rolling footage of Karen jimmying my garage door with a crowbar, then sliding behind the wheel of her SUV. The sound of the crowbar scraping against metal filled the room. A woman behind me hissed, "That's exactly how she opened my shed last year." Murmurs rippled through the benches. Then came the parade of witnesses. Frank Reynolds first, explaining how Karen had stiffed him for thousands and lied about authorization to tow a neighbor's vehicle. Then Mrs. Alvarez, who broke down recalling how Karen had fined her $500 for unsightly potted plants, while Mrs. Alvarez's husband was dying in hospice. It became painfully clear this wasn't just my story, it was the collective history of an entire neighborhood fed up with one person's cruelty. Midway through, the judge leaned back and asked Karen's lawyer, "Does your client intend to dispute any of this?" The man shifted uncomfortably. "We reserve comment at this time, Your Honor." That was when I knew it was over. The verdict came faster than anyone expected. Guilty on multiple counts, including trespassing, property damage, and harassment. But it was the sentence that sent the room buzzing. 6 months probation, $10,000 in restitution to me, another $7,000 to Frank, and a court order barring her from holding any HOA position for life. She opened her mouth to protest, but the gavel hit before a single word could leave her lips. The fallout was immediate. The HOA board dissolved within weeks, unable to survive the public shame and financial penalties. Neighbors began meeting informally, organizing cleanups and barbecues without fear of fines or letters taped to their doors. My garage stayed blissfully empty, except for my tools and my own truck. But the best moment came 3 months later when I got an envelope in the mail from Mrs. Alvarez. Inside was a photo of the new community garden we'd planted on the empty lot where Karen once threatened to build an HOA compliance center. The caption on the back said, "Freedom tastes like fresh tomatoes." Looking back, I realized it was never just about the SUV. It was about drawing a line, saying enough to the arrogance and intimidation that had turned neighbors into enemies. Crushing that car wasn't just petty revenge, it was the physical end to a years-long reign of fear. Some folks say I went too far, that I should have just let the law handle it quietly. But I've seen what happens when bullies get away with it, when no one pushes back. And I'll tell you this, sometimes the only way to stop someone who thinks they're untouchable is to show them they're not. What about you? Was I right to do it, or should I have taken the quieter road?